Hello everybody, I hope you're having a wonderful day. I would like to share with you guys my little experience that I had just the other weekend. I had the awesome opportunity to show up in my own community here. I went to a event called Cars and Cowboys hosted by 308 Industries out in Palmdale, California. I was actually there featured as a vendor doing a knife sharpening, but also education and knife destruction testing, things like that. This is something that was thrown together last minute. I kid you not, the night before the event on Friday night, because the event started on a Saturday, but my wife helped me out. That's the only reason why my table looked any decent at all, is because of my wife, of course. And the idea behind all the things I had on my table were I wanted to show people in my local community what good knives actually look like. I also brought a handful of expensive things and a handful of very affordable things to educate people and show them that there is a high and low just like any other hobby, but for some reason it's just kind of that thing where people just don't know that expensive knives are a thing, because it's just never been something super important. The main thing that I earned anything on was my sharpening services. I was charging like basically nothing. Realistically, I was charging like 1/3 or even 1/4 of what I typically earn when I do online services. Like when people reach out to me to get my sharpening work, it costs a lot more, but I'm also working on multi-$100 knives that have super steels. The knives that I was sharpening at this event, most of the blades were completely unmarked. So it's just, I still want to be able to make something and make it worth my time, or at least break even on what I spent for the event, to get my table and set up and any disposable goods, right? Like the night before, I had thrown a whole case and a half of Sam's Club water into the freezer, and all through the entire event I was giving out frozen or semi-frozen water bottles. It was a hot freaking day. I think it actually hit 100 degrees or so. I wasn't paying attention too much to it because I was too busy talking to people and things like that. I wanted to share a couple of the highlights. So on my table, you've probably seen at this point in time, it's a very simple layout for the most part. I genuinely enjoyed being able to be the person to introduce somebody to the world that is knives and EDC gear. What I brought to the table were things that essentially no one at that event ever knew even existed. And I thought that was a little sad, but it kind of made sense because majority of the companies that we know and love, whether they're US production or overseas production, have basically no marketing department. As a YouTube content creator, that's what we are. Like, that's what content creators do. They are the marketing team essentially, and you get paid in knives. I don't know personally if any of the large, like really big content creators actually are on any sort of payroll. They're probably not going to tell you that, but they get paid in knives. Knives are a form of payment. They are not a form of donation. They are a form of payment, and as a reviewer, it's your responsibility to give your honest reviews. So when I've received stuff, you guys have seen it here on my channel. If something is shit, I'm gonna say it's shit, and I will burn that bridge, because I do not want to have my name, my face tied up with anything that could potentially hurt somebody or is of quality that I do not believe. So you can trust me when I say something's good. And this is kind of what I told people, that this is what I do on the channel. I wanted to share a couple of the table highlights that people picked up and gravitated to. One of the earliest interactions of the day was this guy right here. The Native 5 Lightweight by Spyderco. There was a lovely couple that came up to the table, and the wife was asking something for self-defense purposes, and I told her that I don't really talk about that kind of stuff for self-defense. Knives, in my opinion, are just for utility, while anything could be used as a weapon. We all know that to be true, right? When she saw this little guy, she opened it up very easily. She was like, wow, that was really easy. But she literally went like this, trying to like figure out how to close it. And I told her that it's actually very simple once you learn how the mechanism works. This little black piece, you push it down, and then with your other hand you do this. So I had demonstrated to the lady a couple different things on my table that would be easy for her to use, but she had to run and go do something. Her husband did actually hang around the table just to check out a couple different things, and he seemed quite intrigued in what I had to share. Another thing that brought a lot of people to the table was this right here. This is the T0, I think it's a T052 by Olitans. I have the wave feature down right now, but these studs actually, you can pull them off and position them to where it actually creates a wave feature, and of course you deploy it as it exits your pocket there, catching on the seam. I showed this to a couple people and they were like, I've never seen anything like that. Safety was one of the things that I found myself talking about a lot at this event. So one of the things that I showed them, that with a crossbar locking knife, that it's very easy to deploy. Your fingers will never have to cross the path of the blade on deployment or disengagement, and it's really fun and fidgety, and it's super strong. I took a knife and I was like smacking the edge of the end of my edge of my table, and of course, started with a couple of people, but they're like, wow, that's pretty cool. I would expect a folding knife to hold up. And my response was, well, you'd be surprised. And that's the whole reason why I do what I do. Another thing that caught a lot of people's eyes was this right here. This is the original Civivi Elementum Button Lock 1, the gravity knife version of it. This is of course all decked out with extra goodies: skiff bearings in the pivot, flightanium scales that have been polished and anodized by yours truly, and an aftermarket tie black pocket clip to be nice and matchy with all the rest of the hardware. This is a wonderful freaking knife. There were a lot of people that were like, that looks like custom car paint or something like that. And there were a lot of people that picked this up and was just kind of kicking it around and like that. That's really cool. I could see how that is something that somebody can get behind. Something else that people picked up, let's go with this guy right here. This is the Monikala Knives Assault Team Model 1, of course my heavily modified variant. But little story behind this guy. There was an individual that came to the table that he is fully aware of custom knives and overseas and US production knives. He was unaware of this brand or this model or anything because he had been out of it for a while. He actually is really big into firearms, which of course we know is a relative to this whole community. They're all kind of interlocking in some way or the other. But I asked him, he had this, he was kicking it around, and he's just like, you know what, that's actually pretty nice. I asked him, I said, how much do you think this knife is worth? And I told him, I was like, full titanium construction, hardened steel insert, on bearings, 14C28 and 14C28N blade material, again, Chinese production. And he was just like, honestly, this feels like a $150 knife. And I told him, I said, this is a $40 knife on Amazon. It doesn't come like this because I did stuff to it, but yeah, it's a $40 knife. And he was just like, there's no fucking way. And I was like, yep, the knife world has come a long freaking way. Something else that a lot of people liked was this right here. Surprisingly, the pink knife got plenty of attention. This is, of course, the Arc Form Theory. now completely out of production, and they're kind of rare at this point. Not collectible, but they're rare. That's just, it is what it is. This thing's been used and kicked around here at home. I was even using this to trim up some trees in the front yard. I don't shy away from using my knives, but I don't abuse them. This has seen, of course, plenty of modification from yours truly. I did a comically large sharpening trowel right there, just out of preference. My acid stone wash that I probably left in the acid a little too long and led to some pitting, but I think it looks pretty cool and I guess apocalyptic on the blade. I enjoy it at least, and apparently a lot of other people did too because they like the look of it. The dual finished ano on here, so it's a pink base, and then I tumbled it, and then the tumble scratch pattern ano was done in gold. So when it's cleaned up and like free of hand oils and stuff, it really pops in the sun. It kind of like glitters a little bit. So yeah, the pink and gold sparkly freaking glitter knife caught a lot of people's attention, and this was actually something that was really easy for a lot of people with zero experience with like higher end knives to just pick up and kick out. And I was like, you know what, this is cool. This is really cool to see that. This is the cheapest knife on the table. The pyrite lite. I know there's probably gonna be a lot of people that are gonna roll their eyes over the pyrite lite. I've seen the thing a million times. Well, because there are a million different variations of the pyrite lite for damn near every budget. There was a lovely couple that came up to the table, and I asked them, what they did for work, or if they have like a son or a daughter that they want to get a knife for. The mother had mentioned to me that her son, who wasn't present at the moment, he was fresh out of high school or whatever the case was, and he's starting a little like side thing. He's going to be cleaning houses at night or something of the sort. I showed her this thing, super easy to use. It's super safe, in my opinion. I like this thing quite a bit, and it has been, tested multiple times. This looks like the blade is like polished, but no, it's actually just been used so damn much that the cardboard and media and other stuff that I've cut with it have just polished the PVD coating on the blade. So if you see other content creators and they're showing this knife off and it looks matte finished, they're not using their knives. So this thing has been kicked around and borderline abused. There are scratches galore on this poor thing, but it's been sharpened at least 10 times. The AR RPM 9 blade material, it's very impressive for what it is. This has the full steel liners and still coming in relatively lightweight. I told them that if their son is right or left-handed, this accommodates for that, and wrapped up in a pretty compact package for about 25 bucks. So she took a picture of it, and I told her, I said, there are a million different variations, like whatever color, they like your son would like. I'm sure there's one out there for him. So I was able to pass on some good information so that they can gift their son, hopefully, like a really useful tool that he can treasure and respect. And you know what? If he loses it during working or whatever, it's 25 bucks, whatever, not that big of a deal. Other things that caught people's attention. Vision FG by Civivi, of course, because this is a really good looking knife. It's semi-futuristic because of the lines that are, but once you get it in hand, you can tell that it's honestly a very practical tool despite just the surface look. So you got the weird holes in the handles, and of course I had my my faded Rit dye job there on the scales. You do have the Sanmai construction Damascus there, polished Damascus, and that's another conversation I had with a handful of people talking about Damascus, and people had asked, well, isn't Damascus like really good stuff? And no, it's not. It never has been. Not for performance oriented stuff, but nowadays we can have something that looks good and performs good, and this was one of the ones that people really liked because they had never seen a locking mechanism like that, and seeing how easy it is to deploy, and just how solid and rigid something as smooth and as easy as this to deploy. This impressed a lot of people. A lot of people like the look of this one, and I told them that there are, again, just like with the Pyrite Lite, there are multiple variants of the Vision FG. This right here, a lot of people, a lot of guys, a lot of big dudes gravitated towards this thing. They picked it up and they're like, damn, that's a really like like heavy duty feeling knife. And I had mentioned to them that I have messed with this a little bit. This is supposed to have bearings stock, but it actually has washers in here, and everybody loved the feel of it because it just felt really heavy duty. This is the Civivi vexillum. So this is a knife that honestly didn't do too well for Civivi, but I definitely promote it because I think that it is worth damn near every penny. And especially when you get it in hand, you can tell that this thing is designed as a cut above most things of the similar price range from Civivi. Just a lot of the little small details and just kind of how this thing feels in hand with the washers as a pivot system and broken in. I mean, like this thing put a lot of smile on people's faces. So that was a cool one to show off, you know, for camping purposes. If they wanted a knife that is very inexpensive with a lot of reach, a very open concept handle for left and right, pocket clip wise. This right here is a channel favorite, the Sencut glidestrike, a subsidiary of Civivi, of course. And this one also has washers in the pivot, so it's not going to be as smooth, but it comes with bearings, of course. I guess the Keen too, a lot of people like this one. They had never seen carbon fiber on a knife, and to people in the knife community, like this is old school news, but people saw this thing out on the table and they're like, holy shit, that's beautiful. Like I never thought I'd say within the same breath, beautiful knife. You know, that's something that just isn't a thing to the general public. Something that looks really good, that is absolutely functional. And this is a big knife, right? Like no one's gonna say that this isn't a big knife. It is. This is a whole like 4 1/8 or 4 1/4 of cutting edge. There's a lot of knife. It's expensive, yes, but beautiful. You know, it is definitely. And obviously with the full tie side over here, nice and clean, little back spacer. The pocket clip is, you know, nice and matchy with the whole design language. Like this is just such a good looking knife. And when people kick this thing out and open it up and just kind of just sit there and marvel at it, they're like, wow, I never would have thought that, you know, carbon fiber would be on a pocket knife. I did share my my Crawford one, and I showed them that you can have something that is very unique and custom looking for, you know, sub $50. This was gifted to me by my boss at work. This was one of the first knives that I practiced doing spine work on. I think this came out really nice, as well as here on the flipper tab, just to wrap things up essentially. Sharpening choil there. I torched all the, well, hand polished and torched all the steel outer components as well as the clip, and it came out really cool, you know? And I was just showing them that like you can have something that looks fancy, looks a little bit higher end, but it's not, and just have a fun time with it. I had this guy out, Sebenza 31 large for Chris Reeve knives. Yeah, not a single person picked this knife up off the table. It was in my pocket for half the event because I really didn't want anybody to accidentally drop it. But when I did have it out, everybody just glazed right over it because there is nothing special about this knife. It's just so simple, it's so boring. It gets the job done, yeah, but when you tell people how much these knives cost, they're just like, I don't even want to know why it costs that much or why you thought it was a good idea to spend that kind of money on a knife. And it's just, the general public is not ready for that kind of conversation. I mean, if you want to, you know, talk about like things that you spend your money on that are unnecessary, if you total up how many times you go to Starbucks or something, like you could probably buy a Chris Reeve knife. I know there are some people like that. So that was kind of my experience with the whole thing. I think I got plenty of interaction at my table. I think my layout just needed to be a little bit more organized, a little bit easier to read layout wise. And my wife was with me for the most part. I had a coworker that came to hang out with me for a couple hours. My parents showed up with my, other family members that came by just to say what's up, a cousin as well. At this event, when one person would come, another one would come, and then another, and then within like 10 minutes, my table would be swarmed with people, and I would see people behind them kind of walk by, just kind of look, and then just be like, there's too many people, it's not worth it. I want to have as much space so people could interact with more stuff, because that could have been a potential person that I could have influenced or educated on their next knife purchase, or at least opening them up to the idea and concept of buying a high quality tool of any price range, right? I consider this $25 knife to be a high quality tool. I do. I have just as much respect for this $25 knife as I have for my Chris Reeve knife. With that being said, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, go ahead and leave a like down below. If you are subscribed already, thank you so much. I appreciate all your support and your patience, of course. If you are not subscribed, please consider subscribing, because I have plenty more videos and content coming your guys' way. With that being said, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.